Okay, so I know that I promised that I would make some sort of more objective video and stuff, and this is basically it. Okay, so stick around. I'm going to go over it from the other side potentially a little bit and explain to you why some of the things may not fully translate into sales or fully, you know, provide the value that I thought, or I might, or you might think it might provide, right? At the end of the day, guys, before we continue, you know, I don't know anything. I don't actually have access to Foundry, right? I'm working with CodeStrap and folks like that to see what we can do to, you know, to get some of us a good peek at it and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we don't have it right now. A lot of us, maybe with the exclusion of someone like CodeStrap, pretty much a lot of us are just speculating. Please just keep in mind, none of us are insiders. I don't work there. I do work in the industry, so I can tell you the problems that the industry has. I can tell you the problems of the people and all this other stuff and give you sort of an inside scoop and tell you why Palantir will, in my opinion, succeed. And that's pretty much what I'm trying to provide to you guys, right? And on top of that, I haven't said this in a while because I don't actually, you know, tell you to buy or sell, but, you know, not investment advice, okay? I know that my last video got a lot of views, so if you're new here, guys, don't buy because I'm excited or something. I get excited and then I drop the next day. Like I have, you know, a problem there. So just keep that in mind. This is really just to help us all do some research and track our investment progress and that kind of stuff. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. So just to be very clear, the thing that I was super excited about from that video with CodeStrap, and that was just a clip, right? So I really think you guys should watch the whole thing because he gets into the whole, like, you know, AWS Death Star and all that kind of stuff. And the takeaway that I had from it, right, the thing I was really excited about is the provisioning based on dynamism, which is basically like, it's looking at your app and telling you what you need based on the app that you're looking at, right? Or that you provide. This kind of stuff has actually been seemingly worked on since the 80s, in tech at least. Not really, but like this kind of concept has been around for a while. That's why it's almost a little bit dystopian to actually think that it's gonna happen or something like that, right? It's a little bit of a tricky situation to do, and I've built similar things, not something that's this crazy potentially, but essentially everything has its own level of automation, and all you have to do is plug them together. Okay, that's really how things are built together in the industry. But that in itself is the problem, right? You're never going to have one big platform. Now, just to keep in mind, from the 90s and early 2000s, things were actually built in large platforms. Like they're called monoliths, by the way. Okay, they're built in large, huge platforms of products, and those things are shipped on massive licenses. They took the whole like Microsoft and the Oracle model. But more recently, I'd say in the 2010s. Things like microservices has come about, the technology has improved. So what that means is they take that entire large piece of software and they actually just chop it up to little bits, and those little bits actually communicate faster with each other. The developers can only work on the little bits. So for example, previously, if someone had to make a change to the whole thing, if they had to make a change to one function, it would actually take down the whole thing, and you'd have to have like a policy for maintenance and like a maintenance window and all this other stuff. I don't know if some of you guys remember, but if you visited like a site, and some of them are still like that now. Basically, what I'm talking about is, if you remember from before, sometimes you'd go on a site and it's like, oh, this site is taken down for maintenance. That's what I'm talking about. That's when basically they're deploying a new version of that site onto the destination server or whatever the case is. So all of this right now is, what I'm thinking Palantir is doing is sort of like a culmination of all of those problems that would have been there in the past, right? That's what gets me excited. Now, the problem is we need to verify some of this stuff as we go and look at something like Palantir, because it is a very deep tech company. There's not much information on it. They do publish some stuff, but again, it's all surface level, like investor relations type of deal. Like, we don't understand the tech. This kind of company is more important to understand something like the tech, because something like Tesla, people are out there driving it, right? You can see it. Elon talks about it. Sandy Munro breaks it down, that kind of stuff, right? It's a consumer product. People are able to, you can buy it right now and actually take it apart if you want to, like Sandy does. I'm not suggesting that, by the way. Don't do that, please. But what I'm saying is Palantir is, no matter, even if they get to their full flight, you will not be able to get access to their software very easily, okay? This is not supposed to, or at least right now, built to be a consumer type deal. So just wanted to express that. That's what I was getting excited about. But here's the crazy thing too, on the bull side, right? If you really want to think about it, the market cap of AWS, some people say it's like $1 trillion or whatever, but I happen to think it's more so, if you're conservative, let's say it's $400 to $500 billion. Just the AWS bit. You know, think about it. Like they're capturing a small fraction of that just by being able to provision resources based on your apps, which is kind of what AWS and all these other cloud providers are really there for anyway, right? That's their number one modus operandi, which is just provision stuff for the needs that you have. So just by that, you know, boiled down metric, that's your potential market cap, potentially, just for this one piece of functional software. Right? I don't think it's going to go to that. Like Foundry's not going to be worth $400 billion, at least not like in the next like 5-6 years or even 10 years, I don't think. But they're going to bring down the market share of some of these other people as people move over here for the data side of it. And then they'll say, okay, well, if I'm moving over here for the data side of it, then why don't I just, like, instead of using Lambdas for AWS, why don't I just use whatever Foundry's offering? Now, the sort of drawback, I think, is you got to keep in mind that they are actually piggybacking on top of AWS APIs. So they're, at the end of the day, still using AWS infrastructure. So in a way, you know, you're still paying AWS in some way or another. I actually think they would have made more money if they had their own data centers and spun that up. But then you wouldn't get that. You wouldn't see that in the stock price for like a decade. Because, you know, just to build a data center takes a few years. Plus, like, actually writing the microservices to, you know, do the stuff that I was talking about in terms of the dynamism. You know, you're looking at like 4 or 5 years at the very minimum, and then another 2-3 years for them to start like actually building the clientele and stuff like that. So you will not see that for 10 years. And I understand why they did it, but the margins would have been absolutely bananas if they did that. So, you know, it is what it is. And I understand it's like, why would you want to be another cloud or whatever, right? Right now, they're more of like an augmentation of the existing cloud base anyway. So, but because the way that they would have budgeted and do all that stuff on their end on Foundry, it would probably be more efficient than if you or I went and provisioned the resource manually, for instance. So this is really solving a people problem, guys. It's like to do all the stuff that, you know, I just described. Like you're talking to like 3, 4, 5 different teams. The onboarding process, if you're a new person, it's going to be like months. It's going to be like at least 2 months for you to get fully up to speed and running. Whereas with something like Foundry, where everything's in one platform, you can be up and running like they're talking about in weeks, right? That's their whole sales pitch for the most part. And that's huge, actually. You're saving tons of money. People are being productive, you know, much sooner than you would anticipate. And on top of that, like, you don't have to go to multiple different teams and go through all sorts of compliance and all this other stupid shit just to get something done for yourself, which could actually be something very menial and small. Now, let's talk about competitors real quick. In terms of competition, it's not like Palantir has no competition, but at the same time, it's not like Palantir has, you know, all the competition in the world either. It's sort of some weird gray area between. It really depends on what they're trying to do. So I made a video on the whole competitive landscape thing, and I'll post that over here. You can take a look at it. But the thing is, they, in a way, if you actually combine the two, if you take none and everything, everything wins, right? So they are in a way competing with sort of everybody in the industry. And before we get started on that, I have a very objective view on Palantir, okay? I'm bullish on the company, but I'm not like one of those super crazy hyperboles that are just like, oh my god, Palantir. Like, I love the company and I like what they're doing, but I'm not gonna put away the idea. And there's always a skeptical side of me inside because I'm in software. If you're in software, you know shit breaks, man. Okay, so like nothing is perfect. So you know the back of your mind that there could be something. You never know. But as we progress into this future, I'm slowly starting to realize that something could be nothing, actually, right? It's slowly reducing, mainly because I'm seeing people like Microsoft, who I still think and thought was going to be like their biggest competitors over the long term. You know, Google and these guys, they're shifting their focus onto something different. So it makes you think a little bit, right? Like, are they not seeing Palantir? Because they're definitely smart enough to see and know that they exist. Are they not seeing them? Or is it the fact that they're not trying to work on these problems because they're able to sell what they already sell right now, and people are buying it? They don't maybe need or understand Palantir right now, right? That's a very likely situation that you have to understand. So in terms of competition, for the pipeline situation, we have Azure DevOps, Google Spinnaker and Code, AWS Code Pipeline, Code Commit, all these different things. There's definitely products out there, okay? GitLab CI is a good one. Jenkins is a super open source. It's free, you know, anyone could do it, that kind of stuff. What am I forgetting? Circle CI. Dude, there's so many. This whole, like, you know, diversity of pipeline tools has been crazy in the past 10 years. So that's for the pipeline tools, okay? For the infrastructure type deal, you're looking at pretty much the main thing to tackle here is Terraform, which is made by a company called HashiCorp, which is also a public company, by the way. I think ticker symbol is HCP or something. But anyway, so HashiCorp Terraform, fantastic product, but It's got its quirks. It's definitely had some issues, and it's sort of like a fairly technical. That's the code I was showing you in the previous video, which I'll link over here. If you go over here, AWS has its own one called CloudFormation templates, and they use something similar. It's just like scripting to basically spin up resources as well. For the data lake side of it, we have things like Snowflake and your usual incumbents. I'm sure I'm not going to go over that stuff. You guys know those already. Let's really take a look at what these guys are talking about. Okay, for Azure DevOps, which by the way is a fantastic product. It used to be called VSTS, but they rolled it into Azure as sort of like a integrated cloud solution, and it's great. It's great. I've used it a lot. It's a great product. It does a very good job. It makes a good job of taking the technical components, like writing scripts and stuff, and elevating that to a level where you actually have a UI, and the UI is really good, very intuitive. You're able to sort of navigate where you need to go. Very good for people that are in DevOps and SRE space. Google Spinnaker, again, a good product. There's a little bit of a learning curve with that, and a lot of these things paired with something like Code Commit. I was talking about Git in that previous video. They have this as well. They have a cloud solution of it, right? So again, Palantir is not the only one that's doing this stuff. So there's a little bit of a learning curve with the Google product, but at the end of the day, I think it's when you get used to it, it's a little bit simpler, it's a little bit easier to use, and they get right to the point in terms of what they want to do. The problem with the Google product is they really take pride in that, so it goes into a lot of like a whole like rabbit hole situation where you can like do so many things with it, whereas the Azure and the AWS side really just give you that as a functional feature and you use it for what it is. And moving past that, going to AWS, you have Code Commit, Code Pipelines. Honestly, very simple stuff. It plays well in one sense where if you need to assign something, basically when you need to perform an action, guys, you need to create this thing called like a role or an IAM. Basically, think about it like someone who actually goes and has the permission to do it. Okay, it plays well in that space. It does a good job at that. It does a good job of tracking that, and so on and so forth. Now, I don't want to lose you guys, so I'm just going to try to simplify a little bit. The next thing I want to talk about is the whole identity management system. Okay, so universally in the cloud, at least, it's called IAM, Identity Access Management, and this is the stuff that gives people access to the platforms. Okay, so this is how you would get, like, for example, if you were onboarded into a company, you would have your own IAM or some kind of like a federated, basically you go into some place and they'll give you some sort of temporary role and you can use that to go into the cloud or whatever the case is. Palantir most likely will have this as well, and it's called RBAC, so like role-based access control. And this is the kind of stuff that is very important to have within a platform itself. And the reason why, again, the reason why I say Palantir is good is because it's one platform. Even though AWS, Azure, and GCP are sort of one large cloud, they're basically made more to sell compute. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? They're not taking this whole pipeline and data stuff very seriously. Maybe they are, I don't know, in the back, but in terms of what they're offering to consumers and clients, the idea is more for them to upsell compute and upsell things like services. Like AWS has over 200 services. It's ridiculous. I made a small comparison on that as well. So if you want to go over here, take a look. But the idea is that Palantir is the only one taking this seriously, and this is going to be the next sort of frontier for data or for software in general. It's really important that they have a first mover advantage here, which I really think they do. Put it this way, the reason I was saying this is because I feel like they took all the really, really functional, really good components and what you need, okay? What you need in terms of a data pipeline, tossed it into one platform, which already existed, which was already good at the data side of it. You guys see what I'm trying to say? It's like you go into a supermarket, you know exactly what you need, but you have to go through a whole bunch of different stuff to get it. Whereas with Palantir, you go into it, you know exactly where, like what you're looking for, and it's exactly where you need it to be, and you get in, get out, and it's quick, it's very efficient. It is a good piece of software that does that. For the data side of it, pretty much AWS SageMaker, Google AIP, so AI platform, Cloud AI or whatever it's called now, they keep changing the name, and Azure Machine Learning is really the cloud-based competitors, and I would say the big competitors, just because these companies have the wallet to actually go after someone like Palantir. They can just endure it. They can endure the Palantir onslaught that would potentially come. And then you have things like Databricks, DataWalk, which I think got a lot of attention since Chris Patel brought it up, and people are speculating that it's ARK Invest is the reason why they're saying that they have competitors. And that's kind of about it. I'm sure I'm missing one or two companies or whatever the case is, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make, guys, is you saw what I just did, right? I listed like a bunch of different stuff, and the problem is when these things permeate into companies, you have to do access, you have to do like team-based different, like there's so many different things that you have to do just to get access into this stuff, and then once you get access, you have to integrate it into your current operations. Like that's a lot, and this is the one reason where I think it's actually a good thing for Palantir, right? Because it's like, they're like, okay, we come and we provide a full end-to-end solution. You don't have to worry about how it integrates with your product because we have our forward deployed engineers that'll help you with some of that stuff. And it's like, it's kind of a no-brainer, to be honest with you. Now, is it expensive? Yeah, compared to the traditional metrics, but I would argue it's actually cheap because it's providing you a massive, massive value that people just don't realize, mainly because of the fact that it kind of augments your entire operating system and eventually replaces it. So if in the long run, you're actually saving money. So looking at it objectively, we have to keep in mind that there are very good competitors out there. It's just not built into one product, is what I'm trying to say. And that's actually not that easy to do, is is the point I want to get across here, okay? Please, you guys understand, like, the reason why things are split up is because they're easier to work on from a team basis. Like, I mean, one team can work on one microservice or whatever the case is, or one set of microservices, right? But it's hard to actually combine them all together into like a version, like release, and send that out to your clients. It's quite difficult. And that mainly that's because a lot of these things are written in different kind of pieces of software, different languages, different, you know, they're at different parts of their roadmap. So, you know, their integrations might not be ready for each other. It's like jumping on multiple moving trains at the same time. It's quite difficult. It's quite difficult of a product. And I feel like Palantir is using some of the modern technologies to build this platform, but more so in a microservice way, because they have to. Something this big, it has to be built in that efficient way, or else it's going to be slow as hell and probably a waste of money. Just to be honest, right? But yeah, looking at this objectively, I do understand that they're competitors. My bull thesis on it is that Palantir has found a way to make these integrations so seamless, and it has brought it into one platform, which is basically one thing to sell. You know what I'm saying here? It's one thing. You just got to get that one thing, and you pretty much have what you need. That's a big, big win, actually, to be honest. That's why I think they're having some good success with the whole, like, you know, Foundry for Builders situation, because, you know, when you're a startup, you pretty much need something to, like, one thing. You don't want to pay for like 20 different things and also deal with the integrations. You'd rather your engineering team actually do stuff that's productive. So with something like Palantir, which comes in and it's a full-fledged platform that does everything from end to end, you kind of have that. Okay, so now for the bear thesis. You guys ready for this? I'm one of those people, and if you're not new to the channel, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I always tell you what it is, you know, from my experience, how the business handles these kind of requests and contracts and stuff like that I've been part of. I'm just trying to give it to you straight, okay? So I'm not the type of person who's going to pump a stock for no reason. I will get excited about it because it's exciting stuff, but I'm not going to try to pump it for no reason. So please, if you're new here, please understand that I do want to take things into objective light, and I want to make sure that I cover all angles, even the negative side of it, okay? Or not negative, but bear side. Okay, let's really dig into this. The number one problem I think Palantir is going to face, and in a way, I have to take back what I said about the whole like modularization thing, because I understand now, just from what Coach Rap was talking about, I understand that why they were trying to sell the whole product. Because how are you going to break this up? If you break it up, you're just as good as any other product. That's foundationally built, broken up. You see what I'm saying? I was talking about the microservices thing earlier. That's how they split it up. But how would you break that up when the whole point and you built this whole product to be sold as one? So in a way, you're being mediocre by being everyone else. So it's a tough one. I have to take my word back on that when I said it was good. It'll definitely sell. Like, it'll definitely get them good sales. But I think it'll come at the cost of actually improving the product in the long run. It'll still improve it because they get feedback and stuff, but it's not going to be as they wanted it, I think, is what's going to happen. Number 2 point, they're effectively kneecapping their engineers to a certain degree. Because what's happening is when you modularize your product and you sell as pieces, right? Or sell as a sort of like a lighter version or whatever, you need to actually set an entire engineering team to that vertical, to that line of business. You need to have basically what's called a professional services team. I'm sure they already have one, but you need to dedicate more people to it now, because you're not just selling one massive platform, you're selling functional pieces. They're, you know, whereas, yeah, so then what happens is these people, if some sort of issue happens, and you have to basically massage that and deal with the salespeople that have these questions, and all the sales reps and account executives and stuff that talk to the clients firsthand, you have to have a team of engineers that actually deals with that. I was one of them in one of my positions. So you're actually kneecapping those guys, because some of these guys are some of the best engineers. You will definitely put some of the people that built your product onto that team. Not everyone, but some. Just because you need that expertise, the quick turnaround, so that you're not pissing off your clients and making sure their turnarounds are bad or something like that, okay? So that's a bad thing because you're taking away time from engineering. Let me know if I'm wrong, okay? If you're an engineer and you've been working in the space, let me know in the comment section below if that's not the case. I don't know. Anyway, point number 3, and this I think largely is the biggest thing I want you to take away from this as an objective view, and this should always be in the back of your mind, especially when you're looking at Palantir, okay? Is it needed right now? Just pose that question, and I'll elaborate, of course, but pose that question. And the reason I'm asking that, I think it is. I think there's a lot of value. Palantir is a value providing company. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're not providing tech as much as they're providing like a road. They're providing the highway, whereas everyone else is traveling on like a 1-lane freeway, with not many people in it. At the same time, we're also at a rate where there's not that many data engineers that are really that good. Like and it's not their fault. It's just, it's a new field. People are just now starting to really flock to this stuff right now. Right? It's very hard to hire good data folks. So anyway, so you got to think about it. Like, is it needed? Is the current solution from some of the cloud incumbents, is that enough? Is that enough to get what they want? And I happen to know some data engineers or data scientists, and they're not very technical people. Like, they're very technical from a math and from an algorithm sense, but they don't understand how to like deploy stuff. They need developers to help them. And this is why Palantir is good, but it's also why Palantir can be bad, because these data scientists are not the ones that make the buying decisions. It's usually the senior directors or the VPs or, you know, someone further up the chain. So unless a company is very data heavy or data up, like it's an analytics company, for example, they might not even understand or even know about Palantir. A lot of things that are ahead of its time don't exactly have the best results in terms of sales. Like, you got to sell it at the end of the day, right? So just it's very important to understand that. Like, think about it as a salesperson yourself. Like, you might be whatever, but if you're really interested in making money off of Palantir in terms of the stock, think about it, right? How would you sell this thing? And you have to ask yourself why people aren't buying it already. These guys have been around for a while, right? I know the products are fairly new, but how much of this is attested to things that are needed in the industry rather than things that are sort of wanted in the industry? You know what I mean? Things that are needed usually get a little bit more attention. Things that are wanted, they have a little bit of like glitter on them and grab a little bit of attention, but usually it comes with the cost of learning curve or price or whatever the case is. So, you know, just keep that in mind. There's definitely a few things I'd like to cover more. Maybe I'll do that in another video with one of our other esteemed content creators. But I still think the competitive landscape is fairly even just from a sales front. From a tech front, I think Palantir is ahead, like way ahead. But they're going to have to start selling. They're going to have to start competing. They're starting to do that now, so let's see. I think we'll know in the next 2 or 3 years what these guys are about, and you know, how people are actually flocking to them and seeing what's happening. So that's it for me. I think I'm pretty excited to get this stuff on the road. I'm talking to other content creators and, you know, seeing where we can bridge the gap in terms of how we can learn about the tech and stuff. Check out Coach Trap's videos, man. I think he's going to do a series of how to learn and, you know, see what Foundry does and that kind of stuff. So if you really want to know, you got to go there. He's the one who has access to it. He's going to give us a good insight as to like what you can do on it, how it looks, how it feels. Other than the demos, we have no other way of knowing that, right? So feel free to go check that out. And if you're new here, you know, I really appreciate you guys subscribing. I finally reached 3,000 subs, which is like awesome. I know I've been really busy with work, but I really appreciate every single one of you guys. More important than subscribing, I really want you to just hit me up in the comment section below. I like to have this kind of conversation stuff with you guys and just gauging where all of us are in terms of this investment. Anyway, I'll let you guys go. You guys have a nice day. Catch y'all later. Peace.